The Beach FM Business Lunch Show, brought to you by PlaceMakers Kapiti Horowhenua. Together we're building New Zealand.
Welcome back to the Business Lunch Show on Beach FM 106.3 with Damian on your Thursday afternoon. And let's talk to the 2015 Kapiti Hall of Fame Laureate Award winner from the Electra Business Awards. He has a storied career in our fair region, and he founded Summerset Villages. Let's welcome into the show John O'Sullivan. G'day, John.
Good morning, Damian. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing at this time?
Good. Well, it's good to see the weather improving and people back to work.
Absolutely, and that's as we get closer and lower to the levels, hopefully we're back to some form of normality some way. Hey, mate, I don't even know where to start with your history because you've got such a storied history. Summerset Villages was something that you started because you wanted quality care for your grandmother. Where did those principles start for you?
Oh, I think it was one of those things. Quite often, big businesses happen by mistake. I think Nana was in a rest home and in her 80s or late 70s, early 80s, something like that. And the room she was in, I could stretch my arms out and touch all four walls. And I said to Mum at the time, I said, this is not good enough for Nana or anybody's Nana. There's got to be opportunities out there in the market. And so we had a rental property in Levin at the time, which was 9 two-bedroom flats, and we decided we'd convert that into a 40-bed rest home hospital facility so that people had their own rooms and their own facilities, which was trailblazing at the time because most elderly care was done by the state, at Horowhenua Hospital and places like that, and people, or Horowhenua Hospital, and people were in wards, 10, 12, 20 people in a ward with just a curtain between the beds, and it was really undignified, and that there was a revolution, I guess, in the mid-90s, and guys like Cliff Cook, who started up MetLife, and guys like Kevin Hickman and John Ryder that started up Ryman's, they were trailblazers too in providing a different sort of level of care, and that stemmed from the accommodation that was provided. And we had a whole lot of people come across to us from Horowhenua College to our property in Levin temporarily because Horowhenua wanted to close down for the Christmas holidays, and then when they came back after the holidays to get them back, I said, best of luck. And nobody wanted to go back because in our place they had their own room and their own facilities, and at the hospitals they didn't. So that was the start of it.
Wow. Did you have a storied history in property? I mean, healthcare, anything like that? It was just this thought?
No, I came from a background of hotel management. I worked for Lion Brews, Lion Nathan as it became, for 13 years from after I left university. Yeah. And I was involved in the Cobb & Co's. I ran 4 Cobb & Co's for them in the days when Cobb & Co's were terrific, restaurants. And I think they're trying to get back to that now, actually. Yes. So that was good. But my wife was a psychiatric and gerontologic nurse. So when I left Lion, which was inevitable because I was going to eventually have a fight with somebody at head office, which is what happened. And I just stormed out one day and Rosie said, will you take a bit of time off and get your head together, because I was about 32 or 33 and worked for Lion the whole of my working life. Yeah. And so I did. I took 4 years off and stayed 4 years at home with my daughters while Rosie worked. And during that time, I started to dabble a wee bit in property, and we had these rental properties that we were building up, and then one day I said to Rosie, well, let's look at converting Levin into a hospital. But what happened to my grandmother, of course, that was the catalyst. Yeah. And then we went from one hospital. By the time we sold Summerset, we had 12 hospitals and 10 villages and 3 land banks.
Wow.
So it grew pretty fast in that 12 years.
Absolutely. You also have been quoted as describing those years as the best 4 years ever at home.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I used to go to the school at Kapiti where the kids were and say to the mothers, why do you complain about this gig? I mean, this is like a walk in the park compared to having to go to work. Well, I was just winding them up, and having fun with them. But it was great. I mean, I think that if anybody does that, any father does that, spend some time with their kids, they appreciate it. A lot of them are probably working that out over the last 4 or 5 weeks, actually. And how special it is. And I went to all their stuff, all their school stuff and all their sport and everything. And we're close. We're very close now. And it's got a lot to do with that time, I think. Because before that, when I was in hotels, I used to go across to work, even though we were living in the hotel. I hardly see them because, I was working, 80, 90-hour weeks. And that just completely changed when I gave up the hotels and was at home with them. It's just fantastic.
Wow. Awesome stuff. Hey, let's talk about those early years of business. You go from, hospitality management into property with starting healthcare facilities that are changing the world. What were some of those early learnings and things that you just didn't know that kind of smacked you in the face?
Oh, look, I think that hotel management, as it was back in the late 70s and all through the 80s and 90s, early 90s, the type of amount of hotels we were in, big bars and Cobb and Co's and that sort of thing, you learn a very wide range of management skills. You got, staff control or staff training, and then you got property control as well, and you got all the stock and everything. It's quite a multifaceted management, and so you're learning a lot of stuff. Customer relations and that sort of thing, and it was actually quite easily transportable into the rest home business. If you just focus on the customer and work from there, and it's not that difficult. So I brought that skill to the table, and Rosie brought the nursing skill to the table, and between the two of us, we came up with a plan. And mind you, she didn't stick around for long. She because it was so hard at the start. When we built the first hospital in Levin, we had about $1.2 million worth of debt on it, and nobody moved into it for 7 weeks. So it was pretty tense. And Rosie went back to work. So she was working, basically providing for the family. And I ran Summerset and didn't draw a salary out of it. We didn't draw anything out of Summerset for the first 7 years. Rosie worked all that time to keep the family alive and well. And then after that, it sort of gained momentum, and we were able to pay ourselves
and build more. So where did the idea come to branch out and create more?
Well, once again, this is quite by accident. We had the hospital at Levin. We built one in Waikanae at Norvale, and then we were going to Wanganui, and basically we were a rest home operator then. And the health department in Wellington were very impressed with the two hospitals that we built and were running, and said, well, we've got a problem in Wanganui. We're going to close down Jubilee Hospital, because during the mid-90s, the government started to exit care of the elderly and provide it and pass it over to the private sector. So I said, well, okay, we're going to build one up in Wanganui. So we bought the Wanganui East Tennis Club. Paradoxically, they had to sell because the membership was aging. And so we bought that and built this 40-bed hospital, but we had spare land around it. So I said to Rosie one night, I said, let's just build half a dozen units. And we did, and then very, very fortunately, the land next door became available, so we were able to buy the land right next door to that hospital and build another 80 villas there. And that was the start of the village company. That was, once again, quite by accident. So we built that, and then that became the focus. The villages became the focus, and hospitals became an adjunct to it. So from there, we went to Pauparam, and then branched out to another one in Levin, Palmerston North, Havelock North, Trentham, Taupo, and Auckland. So we ended up with 10 villages by the time we finished.
Wow. Well, I can say as my nana had one of the first ones at Trentham, and it backed onto Trentham Racecourse. And I tell you, some of those cup days in Nana's backyard, next to the bowling green and mini putt course there, was pretty special and very fond times that I remember. And she loved it. Her last 10 years of her life, she loved it there. So I as a
that's great.
Yeah, a little feedback.
Well, I'll
there.
tell you what, it was hard case at Trentham, because you know how it was at the top of the straight.
Yes.
The recreation hall was at the top of the straight. You go there, and all the residents would be there watching the race. And as the horses went past them, they'd all race to the other side to watch the TV. They watch them go across the finish line.
Wow.
So it was really cool.
Yep. Nana was right next to that. She was on the other side of the mini putt course, the little mannequin. Yeah, it was pretty special. Anyway, so from there, how have you kept busy from those days?
Well, we sold Summerset to AMP in 2006. And, I had every intention then of just fading off into the sunset, just retiring. But because, I didn't have a lot of incentive to keep working. But couldn't do that. A couple of years went by, so we ended up buying the land in Waikanae at Ferndale in the Railroad Road, and I built a 62-lot subdivision there, and then we built another subdivision since in Otaki, and we're building 2 more subdivisions now, one in Waikanae, one in Otaki again. We built a subdivision in Hawke's Bay at Taradale. So that's been keeping me busy, and I've been involved in a hotel lodge over in the Wairarapa, Tarahua, People's Tarahua, but we built that. And so it has been keeping me busy, but hasn't been as frantic as Summerset was.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting, land development now. Instead of having, 1,000 staff, I've got 2, which is a lot easier to look after.
Absolutely. Hey, John, what were some of those business principles that you think have been the key to your success?
Well, I've always been very big on loyalty to people that do work with you. I mean, we built a very substantial team of people that work with us at Summerset, and mostly Kapiti businesses. And one of the things I got them to do was early on is I got them all to buy shares in the company. So if you want to come and do the carpet lay, or you want to do the plumbing, or you want to do the electrical work, or you want to do the building, you've got to have some of the shares in the company. And so they all became part of the family, if you like, and they had skin in the game. And what it did is it negated all the normal on-site natural-born enemy stuff you have, like carpet layers and painters don't really get on, So, the carpet layer will come in and spray dust all over newly painted walls or something of that nature. And so, but what we ended up with at Summerset was those guys all cooperated, and they'd ring up each other and work together, and because they were all part of the company. And I think that really facilitated the smooth growth, especially through the early years, and went from there. I don't think they do that now at Summerset, but that's the way it was then. And I continue to use the same people over and over again, and we had big construction companies come and knock on the door and thump on the table and say that I had to get them to quote, and I had to be fair to my shareholders if they wanted to quote. And I just told them to go get stuff, but we stuck with that. We stuck with the locals, and a lot of those local companies have based their original growth on the work they did for us. And a lot of them, particularly in the first 4 or 5 years, over 60-70% of their revenue would have come from the Summerset business.
Yeah. Wow. Mate, I've taken up so much of your time already today, and I could definitely get more out of you, I'm sure. But lastly, I want to talk about that the region. It is growing, and we've been we've been hit by this virus that has taken over the world. But we should still be confident in the region growing, and you've been a forefront of that, haven't you?
Well, I think that we've been in these holes before, and we've come out of them. This is not the first time it's happened, and I still think that there's enough talent in the area for us to get out of it anyway. And particularly in construction, I've always been an advocate that if we can get construction happening, a lot of stuff flows from that. And the construction got us out of the mire in '99 when we had the Asian crisis, and did it again all through after the GFC. People are building houses and building properties. The flow and effect from that activity is quite wide. You go from, for example, the project that we're doing now in Narara Road, we've got Goodman's doing all the earthworks. All the guys that work for them are now earning money again, and they're out spending it. And I guess they're desperately waiting for restaurants and bars to open so they can spend some of it. Yeah. And then once they have all those subbies are done, then the builders come in. And then there's a huge network and flow-on effect from building houses and the people spending their money out in the general community. So I think we're going to have to wait a while for tourism and retail to come back, and it's going to take so we can't rely on those two areas to help the region get out of the downturn in the short term. They will eventually, but in the short term, it's going to be construction and the building industries that'll drive us.
Well, thank you so much for your time, John. I'd love to catch up again, so go well, my friend. Look after yourself, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Damian. Good as gold.